Hi YouTubers. The topic that I want to cover in this video is something that a lot of us deal with, and that's our chosen career path after college. Now, oftentimes, we choose certain fields that our parents don't necessarily approve of, and we wonder, okay, what do we do? In our heart of hearts, we want to do one thing, but there's so much pressure on us to do something else, and I was definitely in that kind of situation. Basically, my parents immigrated from the Caribbean to the United States, and they worked very hard. They worked 50, 60, sometimes 70 hours a week just to, save enough money to move us into the suburbs. So, they do all of that. We move into the suburbs, and, they did stress the importance of education, and I definitely did very well in school. So, the expectation was, okay, we immigrated from a Caribbean, came to America for a better life. We busted our behinds working 2 jobs if we have to, and saving up to make sure that you get a good education so you can get a good job. You have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be something like that. That's what you're supposed to do, and you make good grades, so you have absolutely no excuse to do that. But growing up, I didn't find myself gravitating towards those kinds of careers. Granted, of course, I have a great affinity and respect for people that are in the medical field, that are, lawyers and things like that, but that was never really me, despite the grades. I was always interested in art and commerce, really. Even from age 5, really, I would, draw something and try to sell it for $1 so I can go to the candy store, or I cut up my clothes and make dresses for my dolls. So from before I even knew what it was, fashion design was, that's what I love to do. I love to create with my hands, and basically throughout my whole teenage years, I'd always be creating and selling, and it always did very well whenever I did try to do that. But despite that, they weren't really trying to hear that. As a matter of fact, as a teenager, when I used to draw and show my mother my drawings or show her something I made, she'd call it garbage, and I wasn't really disheartened by it or disillusioned. It made me want to pursue it even more. And basically, when it came time to choose a college, I had many choices, but by the time I was a junior in high school, that's around 16, 17, I applied for a school for fashion design, and I got accepted. And I think that's when they kind of had the epiphany. And basically, I just laid it out to them. I said, look, whether or not you support me, this is what I'm going to do. So, you take it or you leave it, but you're not going to live vicariously through me. This is something I believe in. This is something that I'm passionate about, and I absolutely refuse to give up before I even try just because you want me to do something else. I'm very sorry. If you want a doctor that bad, then go ahead and be a doctor. You're not too old to do that. If you want a lawyer so bad, go ahead and go to law school and do what you have to do if that's your dream. But my vision is my vision. Your vision is your vision. You have to trust me that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it well. And basically, they still had their doubts about it, but I think after my first fashion show and they really saw my stuff, I think they really became my fans. And to date, my parents are my biggest fans now. But it took a bit to get them to that point. And at that time, I just couldn't understand why they didn't support me more. But now that I'm older, I realize that it's very important to seek to understand before you seek to be understood. And by that, I look at things from their perspective. They were worried to death. You work so hard to give your children a better life. You move to a different country. You work 60, 70 hours. Of course, you want your kids to have job security. Of course, you want them to do something that's also prestigious and well respected by conventional standards and conventional terms. So in retrospect now, I appreciate what they were doing, and they did work very hard to give us a better life, and I'm forever grateful. The 3 of us are very well-mannered children. We do very well in school. We don't give them any kind of issues. So they did something right, clearly. But there comes a point where you just have to live life for yourself. And one of the things I've noticed as I've lived across the world pretty much is that certain cultures especially expect certain occupations from their children. Like I noticed, for instance, like the Eastern culture expect their children to be doctors and lawyers and engineers and things like that. And that's what you do. You're good at mathematics, you're good at science, so you're going to go into one of those fields. But I mean, if that's not where your heart is at, then I mean, what's the point? I understand where they're coming from, but by the same token, you know, there comes a point where you just have to live your life for yourself. You know, one day your parents are going to pass away, unfortunately, and the beat goes on. So what are you going to say? Are you going to say, well, I'm living my mom's dream or my dad's dream? Or are you going to say, I'm living my dream, you know? And another thing too is you have to look at your personality and ask yourself, why does your parents feel so strongly about you being something or not being something else? Like, for instance, if I had a child, God forbid, that always changed their mind, that never was stable, that never stuck with anything, yes, I'd be very worried if they wanted to be an artist. You know, the art world can be very fickle. So if this person, you know, is wavering, you know, to and fro, and they never make up their mind about anything, I think a parent does have the right to be concerned that they want to do that, because when you partake in certain fields, especially highly competitive fields, i.e. fashion, i.e. art, i.e. music, you know, it makes sense for parents to be worried. But by the same token, I think that it's important for you to train your children to have like a backup plan. So basically my whole thing is that, yes, I do fashion design, and I intend to be a big brand, and I intend to have a very big business empire, but you know, one step at a time, and I have no problem working my way up to the top. But I also learn other skills that can pick up wherever I lack. So for instance, my sister wants to be an actress, and I told her, if you go to school, don't go to school for acting, go to school for maybe directing or for writing, so that in the meanwhile, while you're waiting on your acting career to take off, you can be directing something that's more stable, or you can be writing, you know what I mean? Because chances of you making more money writing is definitely greater than you trying to be the next big, you know, Angelina Jolie or something. So, you know, if you think in that way, I think you'll be alright. And I also feel like people outside of the creative industries don't know the breadth and depth of those creative industries. Fashion isn't just designing, isn't just sewing, isn't just drawing. You know, you can use your engineering degree, you can use your chemistry degree, you know, if you make textiles and things like that. There's so many different things. You can have a general business degree, and you could be a business analyst, you could be a financial analyst. There's so many different things that you can do. So let's say, for instance, you know, you go to school for finance and you're interested in fashion. You know, your parents might be like, why would you want to go into fashion? You studied finance, you know, work for maybe Deloitte or one of those other prestigious companies. But I mean, you can very well work for Bloomingdale's or Selfridges with your finance degree, and you can be a buyer if you want to, or you can just be a financial analyst, and you have the best of both worlds. You're working in fashion if that's your passion, and you're also utilizing your degree, and you're utilizing your strength if you're good with numbers. So I think that it's very important to kind of find a middle ground if possible, and just stick to what you believe in. You know, in one sense, yes, parents of immigrants, especially like my parents, definitely want to see their kids, you know, touch the sky, and that's fantastic. But you can touch the sky in the creative industries as well. You know, like I said, if you're a fickle person, and I understand the concern, because I know people that can't hold a job to save their life, can't hold anything. Every time you talk to them, they're into something different. Now, if you're going to choose a fickle industry or a less stable industry, yes, you need to have dedication, and you need to understand the fullness and the depth of what you're about to get into. And if you can find another aspect or angle to master, or find your core strengths, and find a different way to kind of manifest that in whatever creative field, then you'll do well. But I do also know that generally speaking, artists are not business minded. I'm a complete weirdo in that sense, that I'm very creative, but by the same token, I am very business minded and entrepreneurial as well. So if I had to really classify myself, I'd say that I'm 60% artist and 40% entrepreneur. So obviously I'm more passionate about art than business, but when you put them together, that's my yin and my yang. You know, that's my balance. So don't feel cornered into doing something that you don't want to do just because your parents don't want you to do it, because I mean, they might be wrong. I'm not saying that they're always wrong, but if you're the kind of person that's dedicated, if you're the kind of person that's willing to do what it takes ethically to reach where you want to work, then by all means go by it. You know, everyone has a different calling, and you know, they just have to respect the fact that it's, at the end of the day, it's your life. You know what I mean? You're the person that has to live with whatever choices that you make. So what's the point in you being a doctor if you know you're going to quit halfway through med school because that's not what you really want to do? You know what I mean? But by the same token, once again, if you change your major 4 or 5 times throughout your college career, like a lot of people I know, then the concern is valid, and you're probably better off taking a safer career, because clearly you're not very decisive, and you know, the ability to make decisions and have good judgment is very critical to your success. So if you're not the kind of person that can make those good judgment calls, or can have a plan and commit to it, then you know, certain industries are just, it's just not for you. You are better off taking a safer route. But I mean, the best way to show your parents that you're serious about it is to have that by any means necessary mentality. Granted, I went to a private college. I could have went to a public college pretty much for free because I got scholarships, but unfortunately the scholarships that I got, they still gave you the same amount regardless of if you were in public or private school. So I mean, it helped out somewhat, but it didn't have an immense impact. But if they decided not to support me, I would have just went to public college, and like I told them, I'll work 4 jobs if I have to, because I can see it in my mind and I know it's going to come to fruition, and it's going to take time, but that's okay because I'm dedicated to it, and I'll learn what I need to learn. In the meanwhile, I've read a million books, and you know, liaise with all kinds of people and read blogs, and you know, whatever it takes to get to that next level, that's what I'm willing to do. And like I said, I mean, now they're my biggest fans, and I'm not saying that you might necessarily have this happy ending, but it's not necessarily impossible. So with your dedication and hard work and progression, then eventually they might jump ship and realize, hey, you know, so and so is my daughter or my son, and I'm so proud of them because they stood up for what they believe in. And if you don't stand up for what you believe in, then I mean, what's the point in living, really? If you just live your life for other people, you know, you're only human. You know, you have your limitations within your humanity, and you know, people just gonna have to understand that. So you know, I was gonna get everyone agreeing with what you're doing, because like I said, maybe there's still people in my family that would have preferred to see me be a doctor or a lawyer because I got really good grades, but that would bore me to death. You know, there's no creativity in it from my perspective, and that's what I thrive off of. There's a certain vibrance and a certain energy when you get around artists, even though they talk a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, their passion and dedication and the way they express themselves, I mean, it just really keeps me going. You know what I mean? So, you know, just stick to what you believe in. If you're the kind of person that's not constantly changing your mind and you have a vision and your parents don't support you, maybe they don't support you initially, but do what it takes to reach that goal. And if you try and fail, God forbid, at least you tried, because it's better to try and fail than to have a what if scenario going on in your mind. So don't just venture into a job or a path just because other people are dictating it to you. It should come from your heart, because it's your life at the end of the day.